Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of the HR Leaders Podcast, the show where we explore the future of work with industry experts and HR executives from the world's leading global brands. Super excited about today's episode. We're joined by Payal Sahni, who's the Chief People Experience Officer and Executive Vice President at Pfizer. Welcome to the show. How are you?
Oh, thank you. Nice to chat with you, Chris.
Nice to see you again. Firstly, how are you? How are you really? We're so used to saying, how are you? So on. How are you really?
Usually you ask that question and then you walk away and go, okay, good to hear, but regardless of the outcome. But no, I'm doing okay. I wish that, we had more peace in the world, given what's going on right now. But otherwise, I'm keeping strong, and I'm hoping that we can help the people of Ukraine and just bring some peace to the world at the moment.
Yeah, great sentiment to start the conversation. I'm completely with you on that. I'm sure everyone is as well. Before we jump into the conversation, tell everyone a little bit more about you personally and in your journey to where we are now.
Sure. So I think personally, so let's just say I'm originally from Afghanistan. My family grew up in Kabul. I was born in Delhi, and I came to the U.S. when I was about 6. And, just lived in Queens in New York, and now I'm actually in New Jersey, made my way, but still always in the Northeast. And, through, I would say, coming here, my family is everything to me. So if you get to know me, you'll hear me often talk about my mom, my dad, my aunts and uncles, my daughter. It's a big part of who I am, and family means a lot to me. So it always comes out in everything I do. And they've been a huge supporter for me and pushed me to where I am today. So, went into college as pre-med and came out as psychology because I realized that, the sort of thought of blood just made me squeamish. And still to this day, I think I pass out just seeing the needles, and here I am in the pharma industry. Did my, graduate studies also in psychology, and just was fascinated with why people do the things that they do, why they think the way that they do, and trying to also get them to be the best version of themselves. And I found myself in human resources, which is now rebranded as People Experience at Pfizer. And it's been an amazing ride. And, 25 years, by the way.
I know. Congratulations. That is,
thank you so much.
We'll get into that more, but that's incredible. We'll definitely come back to that. How would you say, you mentioned obviously parents come over from Afghanistan as well. How would you say that your parents and their journey and them as, seeing what they went through to provide for you and the family going on, how do you think that shaped you personally in your career?
Oh my gosh. It's, I think I'm in such awe of my parents. I guess everybody feels that way, or most people feel that way about their families, but I saw the sacrifices that they made coming in, with the help of some family that was already in the United States, coming in as a refugee under that status, and finding ways of, contributing and doing your part and learning. They just took chances. They never said no to things. They took every opportunity. They had 2 and 3 jobs. I remember, being about 7 or 8 years old, one of the businesses that my parents started up, my dad is a musician by training, and came in and said, well, I can't just play music here. I have to do something different. And got into the belt making factory and industry, and just came up with amazing designs. And I would watch them, up until 1 o'clock in the morning on the weekends when I was allowed to stay up. They were wrapping belts, all made by hand, and I would help package them. And I just saw that was their sort of third job, not their first job, as my dad worked in a restaurant industry, and all that they did to make sure that I had a better life. And we lived in Queens for about 4 years. And my mother had said, the school district is too many people. I'd like to get her out of here and maybe into a different kind of school. And they just worked super hard and sacrificing, whether it was vacations, just so that I could have what I needed always. And they still do that. They still do that to this day. But the way that our culture was and is always putting people ahead of you. And that's something that I still hold very true to my heart. But growing up, there were so many moments where we were almost about outside the door. We were headed out to I remember one trip to Action Park, which of course would have killed me by the time, right? Nowadays, you watch those movies about what's Action Park in New Jersey, created for some folks, but it was great memories. We were excited to go. My father's friend called him and said, hey, I'm about an hour away. I thought I would come for a visit, and we canceled our plans. And I was deeply devastated, but my father turned to me and said, how could I do that? We've got friends that are coming over. They're not so far away. We can always go. We'll go tomorrow.
Yeah.
And that just kind of began that journey of, how they always viewed by doing for others, making sure that they were more at ease than even their own needs, which came always second or last.
Mm-hmm. It almost seems fate then that you are where you are, sitting in this seat right now, right? That's just why I wanted to go back and share that story with everyone that's listening, because we spoke about that during our first conversation as well. So yes, you're like, how does someone go from medical school to being a chief people officer? But I love telling those stories because it kind of finds, HR seems to find us.
That's right.
In a way, no one really sets out choosing.
You are so true.
As a career. We'll touch upon what you just said earlier, though. 25 years in the organization. Looking back on 25 years and how far you've come personally, professionally, how does that make you feel? What memories come to mind?
Oh my gosh! First, I can't believe it's 25 years. I cannot believe that because it's felt like it was 5, I'll tell you. But I feel like I've had multiple careers in the same company. And
you have.
That's because, that's what it feels like is I've had multiple jobs and experiences, but all within the same kind of company. It hasn't changed the name or anything like that. We changed our logo about a year and a half ago. But, it's felt like I came in as an intern and I was given an opportunity of, do a summer internship. I was, in the field of psychology. I thought this is just another experience that my advisor had said, think about. And I said, what the heck is human resources all about anyway? What is this company?
By the way, what was your initial, sorry to interrupt you, what did you think HR was before you knew what HR was?
No, I honestly didn't. And then I didn't even know how to spell Pfizer. I was like, how do you spell this company? And why does it start with a P and not an F? That was my first inclination. But I asked, and people said, I was doing a lot of interviewing through psychology, right? Because I thought I was going to go into counseling. And when I came in, they said, well, you do a lot of, human resources. Part of it is interviews. You select the best talent for the roles that we have. And so when I got into my first interview for a role that I was assessing somebody against, I had to kind of catch myself of not going, well, how do you feel about that? Because that's typically what you would do in your intake interviews as a therapist. Mm-hmm. But I realized that, a lot of the work in human resources was very connected to my background in psychology of trying to get people to be the best that they could be, right? It wasn't just finding the best talent, but it was also manager development and leader development. And how do you get the best out of the people that work for you? And so I started to see the connections, and then I was just intrigued by the business and, what we did for patients, what we did. It was all kind of coming full circle to me, but you're right, Chris, it found me versus me finding it. And it just, I'm a huge believer in fate. So I ended up just taking every advantage of an opportunity to learn. And I think that goes back to, what I saw my parents do, which they never said no to anything. They just said, try it, because what's the worst? You learn something from it and you gain an experience and you go on to the next thing. And I saw multiple, ways in which they tried their hand at businesses. Some worked well, some did not, and they moved on, but they always learned from them. So for me, those 25 years, lots of experiences came to me. And the thing that stuck, that I kept saying was, I said yes. I didn't know where it was going to take me.
Yeah.
A lot of people ask me now, especially as we bring in a lot of interns to Pfizer, and we really try to, it changed my life. The opportunity that I was given from somebody that took a chance on me and multiple people that took chances on me, And for me to also show up to every one of them, giving it my best, allowed me to be where I got to today, right?
Yeah.
Otherwise, I could never have seen myself there.
Mm-hmm.
But I never went into it with, here's where I want to be at the end of the day.
Yeah.
You know, been looking at 25 years, it was say yes to everything that comes your way, because you may not like it, but sometimes life is about learning what you don't like to get to where you really love to be versus knowing exactly where you want to go.
Yeah.
You know, so, but it's been fascinating. 25 years, lots of different experiences.
It's amazing because yes, someone took a chance on you, but you took a chance on yourself by saying yes to those opportunities. And I feel like that's something you mentioned that you learned from your parents, right? Because people always think about what if I fail? Whereas if you flip that and be like, what are the consequences if I don't do this?
Yeah.
Right. You may live to regret that. The worst thing you're going to do is you're going to fail forward and you're going to learn how not to do something.
Yes.
So it's that, I think that's something I inherited as well from my mum and others, is like, you know, the relationship with failure was very different, a different context to a lot of my friends. Whereas, because I saw people try things and fail and it was a positive as opposed to a negative.
Yeah.
And as you said, you may not have all the answers. You may, you know, it may be the unknown, but by you saying yes to those is what's shaped who you are, where you are right now, right?
Definitely. And I think, you know, you reminded me, I just really recently did a post on my mom because she was a huge role model for me. You know, she got married when she was very young in Afghanistan, and she didn't have the option of college. You know, she finished up, she waited a couple of years, and then she had me, and she didn't have any others. So I don't have any siblings or anything. And it was just me. And she, at every moment, she said, look, she kept pushing me, and she would tell me, you know, be a doctor, because it'll give you some stability later in life. You know, we've had some rough starts, and this way, at least I know you'll be employed and there'll always be work and it's a respectable field. But when she saw that my heart wasn't in it, she just wanted me to be happy and said, okay, then go to college, go to graduate school. Even though, you know, they didn't have the funds at the time, they made sure that they figured out a way that I could. And every step of the way, she said, just take the chance, because I want you to experience as many things as possible, because I didn't have that chance to. And that's what I hope for you.
I love that.
And so, you know, she always said, okay, if it doesn't work out, you do something different, but you know, you won't know unless you try.
It's like when people younger, like friends, family, etc., ask me for career advice, and they're like, what shall I do? And I'm like food, you don't know until you taste it.
Yeah.
You've got to taste different things. Try things. There's loads of things I know that I don't like now. because I've tried those things. And both inside this workplace, I have a set of skills. My co-founder and the team have a different set of skills. I found out by trying and realizing, you know what, that's where that takes away energy. This is what gives me energy, and this is where I can add value. You don't know until you try, as well. And it's great that your mom didn't put that pressure, because there is pressure, of course, to get out and to do better and to help the family. And I get that. It's the same reason I didn't go to school, to college, to university. I just went and got a job at 17 to help pay some bills and give any money that I made to my mum to help out. So similar set of principles that I learned. I didn't even realize how valuable they'll be until now. So I love that. Let's talk about the evolution of HR. Things have changed dramatically in the last 25 years. So I've only been doing this, since I was 17. So what was that, 15, 16 years? So you've been here a lot longer than I have. How has the way in which the function operates changed?
Yeah. It's a great question. I actually just had a conversation with some of my team members today in my organization about this evolution. And we joked about, me being here for 25 years. When I started, it was like they had just made the shift at Pfizer from personnel to employee resources. So I get in the elevator. And of course, you can imagine I'm hitting the 13th floor, which is where the human resources function, then known as ER, was. And literally, that's what it felt like. It felt like people came to you during an emergency when something went wrong, rather than proactively about, hey, I'm thinking of doing, resetting my strategy for the business. How do I do that? It's more, something happened, this employee didn't show up, I need to do something, or I have a job opening immediately, and let's go through it. So it was very transactional. It was very, emergency related, I would say. Then we shifted back, I saw bringing back that human touch and human resources function. And there was a lot more, when companies are expanding, they need you more, right? They need you as a function. So you end up being pulled into a lot of stuff. When your company is retracting or there's some challenges, everyone's looking for someone to blame. And it's like, okay, well, HR becomes the space where, okay, how do I cut costs? And you need to deliver some of these messages. And what I've seen is it's shifted a lot in that, in the time that I've been there to really truly be business partners. And I've seen the evolution for myself and where I've loved my job and doing what I do when I'm actually contributing to the outcome. I'm connected to the business. I know why I'm there, and I'm not just doing a transaction. And so, your job is to transactions are part of everybody's job. So it's not about all of a sudden we're more strategic and less operational. You have to actually do both, right? It takes good strategy and good execution. But I've seen the shift where, instead of being last minute, you're the first person that a business leader goes to. And that's the evolution I have seen in my time, is before a team is even thinking of either an acquisition, a leader is even thinking about restructuring their team, they're calling their HR partner or their people experience partner and saying, look, I'm thinking about this. What do you think is the best way to organize? How do you think people will be their best? Where do you think we can get the talent? And that conversation has shifted to be much more of a strategic thought partner. And now I think fast forward with this pandemic, you realize, again, war for talent is hot. You have to think about the whole experience that you're providing, because how do you differentiate yourself of me being on a Zoom working for Pfizer or working for another pharmaceutical company, right? If I'm just sitting in my home office, which I am in today, I have to give you something different. I've got to give you a sense of belonging, and leaders are understanding that. They're struggling with, how do I take care of our employees, my team that I know is giving their all, and they bring their whole self to work. Their mental health and wellness is important. I want to show them that I care about them as individuals, because when I care about them, anybody can pay me a little bit more. But the reason why I stay is not because of that. I stay because the people I work with care about me. They care how I grow, how I think. And our leaders in the organization and in the world, I think, are figuring that out. They're understanding that it's really a hugely competitive advantage. And I think in the HR function or field, we're at a pivotal moment where we have a lot of those insights and can remind our leaders and give them the tools of how to do that and create a sense of belonging, the right culture for people to be as productive as they can be. And in order to be your most productive self, you have to make sure that you're taking care of yourself, right? And so an organization that can remind folks of doing that, people feel valued, and you can maintain and get the best talent that's out there because they feel that same level of commitment to you that you have shown to them. Yeah. So it's been a huge transition, and, I'm fascinated by it, and I love it. I think this is like the best I've felt about the function and what we can bring to the table. And there's no clear lines anymore, right? People are holding a seat at the table, where before I would hear, you have to fight for an invitation.
It shouldn't even be like, HR is the business.
Yeah.
Even HR business partner sometimes frustrates me, because we don't hear marketing partner, sales partner, finance partner. It is the business.
That's right.
And I think if the last 2 years have definitely spotlighted that, because, every company turned to their HR teams during the pandemic and said, what do we do? Right.
That's right.
And all of a sudden you had to come up with all the answers as well. But and in that is kind of what you described as well, is there was the silver lining of that, where well-being came to the forefront. People leading with empathy came to the forefront. Many of the things that we've been talking about and pushing for many, many, many years, the flexibility, the employee experience, etc. So like you said, there's never been a more exciting time to sit in this seat, right? as well. Was that one of the drivers behind the rebrand? I say rebrand, or the change of the function, because previously you were chief HR officer, and now it's moved to chief people experience officer.
It was actually, when seeing the evolution and seeing how you had to take an approach that put, at Pfizer, we always think about our patients at the center of everything that we do, right? They're the end users of our products. We're extending their life. We're making them healthier. We're preventing diseases. And my view for the function was that we also have to think, while that patient is at the end of our medicines, our colleagues are also at our center. And we need to think about the experience that they go through, in addition to having the classic HR functions of benefits and compensation and business partners. I also have our facilities. And it's not just about the bricks and mortars, but it's the experience. How do we make sure that when people come into an office building, they can do their best work? They feel seen and heard and cared for, because that's one of our values. We have 4 values at Pfizer. It's courage, excellence, equity, and joy. And so we've got to bring those values to life. And so in addition to having, those key functions within a normal HR division, I also have the facilities. I also have internal engagement, which is our formerly known as communication. So looking at that, I felt like, our common piece was the experience that we have for our employees, for people. And we did broader people, because they're future, people that haven't even joined me yet at the company that I want to entice. So we have to think about it as an experience, and those words change the way that you look at it. So I'll give you one specific example. We had our staffing team was known as talent acquisition. And when I started to look at some of the transactions, it was very much, okay, we acquired the talent, now we hand it over and we move on, right? Now somebody else takes over. So we changed that name, even underneath people experience, to say candidate experience. And now all of a sudden, everyone's asking, hey, when you join, do you have your laptop? Do you know where to go? Do you have an onboarding plan? Do you know how to connect? Do you know what we stand for in terms of the culture? So just by rebranding that, it's changed the focus that we have, and we're thinking about our processes. We're thinking about, we're spending all this time and money going out there and finding the best talent. If we're bringing them in and then bogging them down with processes that actually don't allow them to do their best work, then that's like not a great investment, right? We've actually lost money there. And so we have to think about the journey that people have, because they don't look at it as pieces. I want people, from the moment that they think about Pfizer to the time that they leave, that they have an amazing experience. And we've had people whose jobs have gone away, because every company restructures and changes happen and new opportunities come about. And sometimes the role that you had no longer exists. And the best compliment to me is, one of our employees who left created a post on LinkedIn that someone shared with me and said, my time is over, but I've had the best experience of my career at Pfizer. And they treated me so well from the moment I came in to the time that I'm going, and I will forever be an advocate of Pfizer. That's my goal. Mm-hmm. You've got to look at it. And so it just seemed fitting that we should be looking at it from that lens, and that we should be thinking about everyone's experience for the time that they're with us, and then some.
I agree. What advice would you give to HR leaders that are listening who want to go on a similar journey that you've been on?
Yeah, I think you have to think about who is your end user and what do you want that experience to feel like? And when you take that different lens of putting the colleague at the center of everything you do, it will give you a whole different kind of perspective on the processes that you have. Mm-hmm. I think over time, and at least I have seen this in what you called your classical enabling functions in a company, is, you had a number of resources, then you become more of a SI&A, and you've got to change, you've got to reduce your costs. And what happens over time is you end up trying to do more with less resources instead of trying to do things differently with fewer resources. And so
that's such a good piece of advice, by the way. And so many people, I hear that offline with CHROs all the time. They never say that. And then they end up having to sacrifice things along the way. Yeah, that's such a good point that you just made.
And you can't. So, but when you do it that way over time, what happens is you start to take processes and make them as efficient as possible for the few resources, because you're still trying to do things the old way. So instead of me talking to 5 people or 10 people or 50 people, I may not have the time or resources to do that. So instead I send you a spreadsheet because it's easier for me to gather that insight. But then eventually, when I keep doing that, I build more processes, and I'm at the end of a process rather than a person. And when you switch and say, well, how does that person feel? They won't even know who their, partner is, who they can go to bounce off ideas. It becomes more of a transaction. And so to take that lens, if you want to go down that journey, is, think about that end user, and work backwards and say, how does it feel?
Yeah, that's a good point. How does it feel to be in that experience? The word workplace has taken on a whole new meaning. Work is no longer a place you go to. Before it was like, come and see our office, right? As you said, what do you think a workplace can and should be in your mind? What does that look like?
At Pfizer, we were already on this journey of flexible work and, working remotely in certain pockets. Not all of our roles can do that. We have these amazing heroes in our manufacturing organization that throughout the pandemic showed up and continue to show up every single day to make life-saving medicines. They could not do that at home. So that workplace looks a little bit different. We had people in our labs, they equally had to go in and show up. And so, coming up with the vaccine, they showed up and did a lot of testing. But the vast majority of us have demonstrated that we can actually work pretty efficiently from home. And so when you come into a workplace, I don't want you to come in and bring your laptop and just go behind a closed door and do your emails. You could do that at home. I want you to be able to do things that you're not able to do at home, which is connect with people. It's amazing the energy that you get, and flexibility is great. And that's what we're offering and we have, but connection is really important to pull through the culture. It gives you energy. I know that it gives me energy when I walk in. I don't need to do it every day, by the way, because I had a pretty long commute myself. But when I do come in, I spend the days that were my best days were days that I used to be back to back with more people connections, right? I would run into folks in the hallway, and I got to know the person. I got to build my trust so that when I went and worked remotely, I already had established that connection. I'm very conscious of people that are joining who are saying, well, I don't know what it feels like, right? People have been nice to me. I got a nice laptop, but what does it feel like? So the workplace for me has to take into consideration of allowing you to do your best work in the best way that you can, but that let's not lose sight of that personal connection, which is really, really important. And it should take on the concept of understanding what work looks like for you, what works for you. If we're going to diversify our company, you've got to make exceptions for those exceptional people. I learned that term, by the way, from Laszlo Bock.
I love that, by the way. Yeah, let's say that's a good one. Yeah.
Yeah, he shared that with me. And he goes, make exceptions for exceptional people. And you're going to have to, because one of our values is equity. It isn't doing the same thing for everybody, right? It's doing the things that matter, allowing people to do their best work and be their best selves. And that might look different for different people, for different points in time in their life. So, I think that you cannot have a one size fits all, because people are different. People are unique, and you've got to harness that talent in the best way possible. But that workplace connection is important.
Yeah. I think everyone agrees with you. No one listening is going to disagree with you. But at the same time, we also know the challenge just ahead of us in changing the systems, the processes, the thinking, the mentality that's been there for decades. The way, and I saw that you did some great work recently with your benefits, which I saw on LinkedIn, which was posted by one of your colleagues as well, and how you've made that flexible for your employees now, whereas before, again, it was just one size fits all. We have different needs at different times in our lives, so we should be able to customize what those things look like as well. But again, even from a technology perspective, a lot needs to change So we're all on that journey and trying to figure that out. I'd love to jump into more, but I'm just conscious of time as well. So before I let you go, I'm going to jump into our quick fire round. So this is what I do with all of the guests, right? And you've only got 30 seconds for each question. Are you ready?
Sure.
You're like, yeah. Okay. What are your hobbies and passions outside of the office?
Photography. I love taking random pictures with my iPhone and just editing them when I get a chance.
Really cool. Wasn't expecting that one. I love it. What's that picture behind you, by the way? The one which just...
Oh, this is my husband and my daughter when she was about, I'd say 18 months old.
Amazing. Is that one from your phone?
Yeah, it actually is one of, it's from my phone.
There you go. It's right there as well. If you could click your fingers and change one thing about HR, what would it be?
Focus on outcomes and not just on activity.
Mm-hmm. How would your family or, your husband, your kid behind you, your family and friends describe what you do for a living?
I think they think all I do is I'm on calls. I would say my husband probably thinks I just hire and fire people. He still doesn't understand it and writes me often some sticky notes saying that I think all you do is change management because I hear about it all the time.
Yeah.
My daughter just thinks I'm on calls. She has no idea.
Yeah. Same as my daughter. Your daddy's on calls. Have you ever considered changing careers, walking away from HR, trying something new?
Yes. I mean, I've always, moments of my 25 years, I've thought of, do I go back into psychology? But then I realized that I'm doing it every day in my current job. So I'm actually where I want to be.
It's true. Yeah. You probably would have done it and came straight back as well. What legacy do you want to leave behind for your family?
I hold very close to my heart the sacrifices that my parents made for me and the chances that I was given. And I'm working really hard every single day to make sure that my own legacy is one that people also feel that I was able to give back and help someone else and help more people. So with my platform, I'm very privileged to be in the role that I'm in, given the chances that I was given. And I'm giving them back. So I'm mentoring people. In my group, we have created internship programs that offer people that don't have the same means as others do and are not represented in our community as well as others are, and giving them a chance and actually picking up the cost of their entire education. I feel that's a great way to give back. We just recently put in place a refugee program. We're doing all we can for everyone in the world that is disadvantaged, but certainly, my own background being from Afghanistan, we're doing one for the refugees that are in the United States for Afghanistan, but globally coming from Syria, coming from other places, and giving them an opportunity and a chance like I was given so that they can actually make their own families proud. And my legacy that I would love to leave, like for my daughter, is I want her to do the same thing. Because if each one of us does that, we can make such a huge contribution, and that's more meaningful to me than any award or star or anything else that I would get.
No, that's amazing. That's amazing. Again, like we said earlier, clearly it's just meant to be in this space. What would you say is the biggest investment you've made in yourself in your career?
I would say when I got into this role, one of the things that as a practitioner I did is I always got people coaches, right? I said, it's always good to have a suite of mentors around you. And I actually got one for myself when I got into this role. So I said, I can't keep telling everybody else to take this medicine and not do it for myself. And it's hugely valuable. And my personal coach is this woman by the name of Kim Powell. And hopefully she'll see this at some point. And she's been instrumental. And I've had many others that have given me their advice along the way that I hugely appreciate. And you don't realize how much it's needed, but it's important to turn the mirror to yourself and say, what are the things that I often tell leaders, but I actually don't do for myself? And that is balance. It's about, being thoughtful, writing down your accomplishments, because we like to beat ourselves up a lot, and it's important to build ourselves up. And so I invested in myself in that way. And it's done a lot for me personally, mentally, as well as physically.
Yeah, I can attest to that. I only recently just got a coach, but I can already start to feel, even though the last few weeks, the shift. And it's not always easy to look in the mirror. Let's be honest. It's hard to do that, but it's where the growth happens, right? Sometimes you don't know what you don't know, and that's okay as well. You kind of just touched on it a little bit, but maybe it's someone else. So I was going to ask you, who's the one person in your life that's had the biggest impact?
My mom. My mother. She was always behind me, as I mentioned earlier. You can do this, you should do this. I want you to have these experiences that I never had an opportunity for. And I'm right there behind you to help. And that was really important to me. So, I went back to work when I had my daughter. I went back to work within, I think, less than 3 months. And, I wish I had had more time, but I was also eager to get back. And my mother said, I need you to get back because you have a daughter and I want her to see that she can also do things and have a family too. So, you're setting the stage not just for others, but you're setting it for your own daughter. So get out there and do it. And she's been a huge advocate for me and a huge supporter. And I wouldn't be able to actually do this job without her support and her confidence in me. Because, I, like everybody, we don't like to disappoint people. But she said, you can never do that. And it's something that I mention to my daughter every night, that no matter what, I might yell at you. We might get into a fight, which, we're at this age now, she's 8, so we definitely battle a lot. But I said, I will never stop loving you and believing in you. So you can come to me with anything and I will always help you out. Yeah. So go and be you, right? Be the best you that you can be.
Love that. Love that. And then last question, for all of the HR leaders that are out there listening, that are on their journey to where you are now, what advice would you give to them?
I would say be your most authentic self, because people can tell when you're not. So you've got to find a way to, whatever you do it authentically. We have a tendency to try to say, I need to be like this person, or I need to come across like this. And you might have people, which I've had in my career, people have said to me, either cut your hair shorter, people will take you seriously. Be more direct and bang on the table when you have to say something, because it shows your force and it shows your leadership. It never felt right to me, because I always focused on, how do I want to make people feel? And how can I be the same person I am at home with my family and bring that to work and still get done what I need to get done and do it in my most authentic way? And I always say to somebody, like, be yourself, because everyone else is taken. And, find ways where you can get your message across, but do it as authentically as possible, because that's going to be the most comforting way and honest way that you can be. Yeah. You don't have to practice, right? Like, I didn't do a lot of prep for this. You and I chatted about some for questions, but you had said to me, this is a conversation and people may you might be able to help somebody. And that gave me enough to say, I'm going to be honest. I'm going to be who I am. Yeah.
Oh, I love that advice as well. And there's so many, one, it's exhausting to try and be someone else, right? It's physically, mentally exhausting. 2, as you said, people can feel it, and you can't really build real meaningful relationships, trying to be someone else all the time as well. But look, thank you so much for coming on the show.
Thank you.
I really appreciate it. And I think it's journeys and stories like your own is one of the reasons I started this show.
Well, you know what, Chris, when you shared your story, I was very inspired by how you gave back to your mom and, the things that you started to do. And by just doing this kind of session, you're actually giving back to a bigger community as well. So thank you for what you've done.
That is the goal. That is the goal. Well, look, for everyone listening as well, thank you for tuning in. If you enjoyed the podcast, please like, comment, share on LinkedIn, tagging colleagues. We want to impact as many people as possible, which is why we do this. Also, make sure you follow Payal on LinkedIn. Follow me on LinkedIn if you like this content as well. Follow Pfizer as well, and there'll be all of the links below in the comments as well to make things easier. Apart from that, Payal, thanks again, and I wish you all the best. Until
Thank you so much for having me. Thanks, Chris.
Bye bye. Thank you. Bye.